tragic, and it's astounding and infuriating on so many levels. When I look at the latest vaccination data for the city of Philadelphia, I'm seeing a situation where, despite the fact that we're in a city that's nearly half black, that's nearly 45% black, just under 18% of those who've been vaccinated or received the first dose of vaccine are black. And while 53% or more of the people receiving vaccine in the city are white, I just the inequity or the inequitable distribution of vaccine right now in the city is infuriating. And I'm wondering, how is the council or how is the mayor himself holding his administration accountable for that?
So you raise a very good point. We can't change what happened yesterday, but we can change going forward. What happened yesterday was we got vaccines. We gave them to third-party providers, and we prayed and hoped they would do the right thing. Many of them did. Some did not. Look at Philly Fighting COVID or PHMC. When you don't control by the city where the vaccines go, you have these issues because you're praying and hoping. These mass vaccination sites we're talking about must be controlled through a mass vaccination registry and scheduling program by phone and by internet. This way we can say, all right, Charles, on Tuesday tomorrow, we're going to vaccinate these 6 zip codes in this section of the city. That's all that's going to come. We're going to bring them all here. And then you can control the equity. We don't control the equity because we didn't control who gets the vaccine. We gave them out to third-party providers. Like you saw what was going on with Rite Aid. Everybody was sending their link to everyone. Even the suburban people were getting the Rite Aid links. Or Walgreens or Centennial. There's no control.
Yeah,
that's why
we're not controlling that either, because I've seen in other places in metropolitan centers elsewhere, like let me take suburban Washington, D.C., for example. So majority black county right outside of Washington, D.C., Prince George's County, they were finding majority white counties like Montgomery County, Anne Arundel County, and other places. They were coming into Prince George's County, which was the hardest hit county in the whole state of Maryland, but they're coming in and taking vaccines from Prince George's County residents. The county shut that down. They're like, listen, you come to one of our mass vaccination sites, you have to show proof of residence in Prince George's County.
Right.
Is Philadelphia doing that?
Well, we need to do it by ID. You need identification.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't just get. Yeah. And think about it. You can't go anywhere without ID. I mean, that should be an automatic. But I do think the issue here is until we have a mass vaccination registry and scheduling site, accessible by phone, because not everybody has a computer, and accessible by, iPhone and laptops or whatever and computers, we're never going to be able to get control. Because here's what happens. Somebody gets a whole bunch of vaccines, and they'll say, hey, you need a vaccine, I got one. Or that stuff happens without control. You need the control.
And why is the city still going to third-party providers after the Philly Fighting COVID debacle, right, Councilman? We're still, why are we constantly, or not we, why is the city, why is the mayor and the public health commissioner constantly reinventing the wheel on this? You have a perfect model that has been operating with minimal resources called the Black Doctors Consortium. Like, if it's not broke, why fix it? Why reinvent the wheel? And so, but we're just talking now, we're still having a situation like what happened at the Licorice Center, where you have these third-party providers. I don't understand it. It still looks very, and you've already explained that, it's still very decentralized. It still looks very confusing and scattered and fractured.
That's what happens when you give up control.
Yeah.
We gave up control, and that was the biggest mistake we made, period. Yeah. If we kept control, we could control the equity. We gave up the ability to control equity. That's the issue. And as far as what happened at Licorice Center, we should have had a public safety plan in place. If you're going to open a vaccination with no appointments and snow, I mean, we should have had a public safety plan in place. We should have provided, if it was going to be a line, porta potties, food, water, etc. We did nothing. That's not planning.
Can I ask you this, Councilman? Do you feel like the current public health commissioner, Tom Farley, should be replaced?
I don't know. I wouldn't put the blame on public health. This is like several departments within the administration. This really falls on the mayor. Okay, This is the mayor's job to coordinate everything. He's the head of our city. This is the mayor's responsibility. I don't put it on anyone else other than the mayor. This is the mayor's job. The mayor's job is to coordinate all the departments. If the health department needs help, then he provides that help to them. But he needs to make sure that there are plans in place. He's running the show. He is the leader of our city.
Oh, real quick, Councilman, I have a question here from Prince out of Schuylkill, who's calling in during our conversation with Council Member at Large Alan Don. Prince, how are you doing?
Hey, good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
One, it's interesting how he says that everybody should have ID, and when the Republicans was making that case that everybody should have IDs, it was a different song. But I like to ask the councilman this.
No, but we're talking about a pandemic here, Prince.
Know,
we're talking about getting people inoculated and provided with adequate public health prophylaxis. You're kind of making that's an apples and orange comparison, I think.
Okay, here's my question. You have a building that we spent more than $6 million that's occupied by the Philadelphia Housing Authority that's not utilized between Germantown and Somerset and Germantown and Cambria. Why aren't you using that building? And there's another building at the 1800 block of 32nd Street, right off of the expressway, that's occupied, that's unoccupied, but it's the Housing Authority building. It was a travesty to see those people standing outside in 21-degree weather, and asymptomatic people was the people that were 70 and older. Why didn't we allow them to go in first? And my last statement for the councilman is that why don't you tell them that the city didn't want to bear the insurance liability? That's how come they put it in the hands of a third-party provider, and that is irresponsible for this city. And once again, I agree with Charles. You don't blame it on the mayor. If the mayor appoints somebody to handle this operation and it fails, then that person is held accountable, not the mayor. It's easy to push it off on the mayor when you want to run for mayor, but the people accountable in that position was Farley, and he should be gone. Thank you, Charles.
Yeah, no, thank you, Prince. Good questions there. Go ahead, Councilman, real quick.
Yeah, but let me just say this. You also have the Office of Emergency Management involved, and you have other departments within the city involved. So it's not just the health department. It's a combination of several departments. So you need a coordinator of all those departments to say,
and I think that's the public health commissioner. And the reason I say that too, Councilman, real quick, is because I've been in that position of working for a chief medical officer, a public health commissioner of a major city, responding to crises. Somewhat similar in nature to vaccine distribution, what we're handling with vaccine distribution right now. And the mayor of the city, if that didn't go correctly, he was holding his public health commissioner responsible. And I don't see, and I'm not the only one, we do not see the level of emotional investment or urgency from the current public health commissioner. We just don't. In fact, Councilman, the public health commissioner, Tom Farley, was supposed to come on this program and talk with me about equitable vaccine distribution last week. And because I wanted to ask him two simple questions, hey, well, what are you doing to ensure that Philly fighting COVID does not happen again? And what about, just you're having issues with equitable vaccine distribution? He didn't feel prepared enough for those questions. He didn't want to answer them. He felt, and I'm like, I'm being transparent here. I'm not going to ambush you on air. To me, that smacks of management malfeasance. He's not doing his duty. I've worked for a few public health commissioners of a large city, and I know how public health commissioners are supposed to operate. And I talk to them all the time in different cities and states. And this current public health commissioner in the city of Philadelphia, I'm sorry, Councilman, is not rising to the occasion. He's just not.
Well, let me say this, though. I'm not saying the public health commissioner is not at fault here. What I am saying is, and when you have a city of Philadelphia or any company, it is the person in charge who's responsible for the people underneath them. And that is that person who should be checking on things and making sure things are happening correctly. That's why you elect a leader.
I agree with that too.
And that leader has to make a change, and that leader makes that change. But it's up to that leader to do it.
Yeah. I agree with that statement as well.
That's my perspective on it. Yeah.
I agree with that. I hear you.
I want to make sure your audience and listeners are clear on what we were pushing for. A mass vaccination site, which is in 30 other cities, can do at least 6,000 vaccines per day, could go up to 10,000. And once the federal government sees that capability, like if the link was used instead of a convention center, people would either be sitting in their cars with the heat on, they'd stick their arm out the window, get a shot, and wait 20 minutes to prevent a reaction, okay? okay?
Yeah.
And if they were in buses or whatever, we would have shelters for them. We would keep them in the buses. It would just be a better situation than what went on at Lee, of course. We just didn't have a plan. And a lot of,
Oh, we do.
Charles, tell me how you pick a convention site location, but not have a transit plan, not have a parking plan, and not have a public safety plan.
Yeah, I completely
And
agree.
say you're
You and I
working
are
on
the same
it.
page about that. Mm-hmm.
You can't pick the site till you know all your plans.
Right, right. Absolutely correct. We've been talking with Councilmember at Large Alan Dom. Go to phlcouncil.com/Alan Dom for more information there at Team Dom, or to, you definitely want to go to his website if you want to get more information on how to get in touch with his office, particularly on this issue and others. Councilmember, always a pleasure talking with you. So we'll talk again real soon.
And then, Charles, let me just say this.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Leadership is most important in times of crisis.
Mm-hmm.
When things are going well, it's not as important. Times like this, you need that leadership across the board, from the administration, from council, from every department.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So
I agree.
I appreciate you having me on. I'm happy to come on anytime and answer any questions you have. I'm happy to.
I know you are. All right. Yeah, I appreciate your time.
Okay.
And you're absolutely right, Councilman. We need to see leadership exhibited we need to see emotional investment from the mayor as well. We're not seeing that. We're not seeing that with respect to this vaccine situation. We're not seeing that particularly with the city's response or lack thereof as it relates to the violence epidemic. So that's obviously another conversation for another time. Thank you, Councilmember. Good talking with you. Let's take a break, and when we come back on the other side, we'll head into our roundtable edition. We're going to tackle national issues. We've got Janice Hazel and Mo Kelly coming up next here on Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Well, the kids are in bed. Time for a little grown-up quiet time.
What do you mean quiet time? It's your birthday. We're about to party.
Haha, funny. It's gonna have to be a you and me party this year. You know we can't have anybody over.
Well, your mom and dad are coming from Florida. Sis will be here from California. Oh, and a couple of old friends from just about everywhere will be showing up. They should all be here about now.
COVID-19 has changed the way we do things, for now. But social distancing doesn't mean you can't be social. COVID-19 doesn't have to keep us apart. Friends and family are finding new ways to be together, especially with how hard it's hitting the Black community. Vaccines are here, but until enough of us are vaccinated, we still have to be down with slowing the spread. Keep a 6-foot distance, wear a mask, and avoid indoor social gatherings. Learn more about vaccines and slowing the spread at cdc.gov/coronavirus. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
I'm Anthony McLaurin. Been denied insurance? Call 888-307-0505. Life insurance, age 0 to 85, no examination needed. Homeowners insurance, any home, any condition, same-day coverage, 888-307-0505. Auto insurance, we can have you covered in 15 minutes. Business insurance, call 24 hours a day, 888-307-0505. I'm Anthony McLaurin. When you need insurance, I can help.
WURD Radio celebrates Black History Month with Black Artist Story 365. Brought to you by AARP, Thomas Jefferson, and New Voices for Reproductive Justice.
Welcome to Black Artist Story 365. My name is Envy McKee. Get into this episode where we explore the art and artistry of Trinidadian American, Tony Award-winning actor, voice actor, singer, dancer, composer, choreographer, costume designer, visual artist, and director, Jeffrey Holder. Part 1. King star Uncle Jeffrey was an August Leo, born Jeffrey Lamont Holder of Port of Spain, Trinidad and Tobago, the youngest of 5 children of Louise de France and Arthur Holder, who had immigrated from Barbados. Bosco Holder taught Jeffrey painting and dancing and recruited him to join a small folkloric dance troupe he had formed, the Holder Dancing Company. Bosco was 16, listen, and Jeffrey was 7. Okay? When Bosco left for London, Jeffrey was left in charge of the dance company as its director and lead performer. Soon after arriving in Brooklyn, he joined the Katherine Dunham's dance school, where he taught folkloric forms for 2 years. From 1955 to 1956, he performed with the Metropolitan Opera Ballet as a principal dancer. He left the ballet to make his Broadway debut in the Harold Arlen and Truman Capote musical House of Flowers. While working on House of Flowers, he met Alvin Ailey, with whom he later worked extensively, and his future wife and muse, Carmen de Lavalade. After the show closed, he starred in an all-black production of Waiting for Godot in 1957. As a choreographer, because you know he's got all them lists of things that he was masterful at, Holder created dance pieces for many companies, including Alvin Ailey, American Dance Theater, for which he provided choreography, music, and costumes for Prodigal Prince in 1967, and the Dance Theater of Harlem, for which he provided choreography, music, and costumes for Douglas in 1974. He was director, costume designer, and choreographer, as we mentioned, in The Wiz in 1974. And in 1978, he directed and choreographed the Broadway musical Timbuktu. So that's it for this episode of Black Artist Story 365. My name is Envy McKee. To hear more, tune into The Envy McKee Show, Friday nights, 7 to 10 p.m., right here on WURD.
Black Artist Story 365 was brought to you by AARP Pennsylvania, Thomas Jefferson, and New Voices for Reproductive Justice.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check. It's our Monday edition, and on Mondays we hold roundtable sessions here on Reality Check, discuss, unpack the national issues. We have joining us now Janice Hazel from Motown, from Detroit, joining us now. I love that. If you see her on WURD TV, you got that beautiful silhouetted Detroit skyline. I like that backdrop, Janice. Janice Hazel is a contributor to the senior contributor to the Michigan Chronicle, newspaper of record there, black newspaper in the state of Michigan and Detroit. Go to MichiganChronicle.com. Also was a senior legislative aide to the late great Congressman John Conyers, and she is a regular here on Reality Check. Always good to see her. And Mr. Mo Kelly out there in Los Angeles, waking up early in the morning to join us here on Reality Check because they're 3 hours behind out there in LA, is host of The Mo Kelly Show. Wonderful show out there, doing some great work. The Mo Kelly Show is on KFAI AM radio in Los Angeles. I'm missing Los Angeles. I was just telling them I got to get back out there after this apocalypse is done, but it's good to see you both.
Good to see you.
All right, excellent. Hey, Janice, I want to start with you and ask about the situation in Texas. It's really bad, and I actually had the good fortune of talking with the Harris County Commissioner Rodney Ellis, who described the situation on the ground there in Houston. Harris County is basically the jurisdiction for parts of Houston and elsewhere. So your thoughts on what's happening out there and what we can do from here. It's a disastrous situation. How do we fix it, you think?
Well, of course, you're in Pennsylvania, which you're routinely cold. I'm in Michigan, where we've just had 8 inches of snow, and we'll probably get another few inches tonight. It just keeps going on and on and on. So I'm no stranger to below zero temperatures, but I understand those who are in colder climate and warmer climates and how it can be very disruptive. You know, Texas has, for all of my lifetime, been known as the oil capital of the country. And so the move to renewable energy is great, and we want to all get there, but you still have to have that backup. So it's a great failure of their leadership, of their governor, of those utility companies. I saw the gentleman, the commissioner on that you just mentioned on CNN talking about the challenges there, and I have relatives and friends who are in Texas, and they're telling me it's really horrible, the high energy bills that they're getting. One gentleman I saw on CNN, $7,000 energy bill, which is outrageous. So their regulatory agencies really are not in keeping with what's needed for them, and climate change is real. So why they went off the grid like that is unbeknownst to me. We've never had that happen here in Michigan. 2 years ago, we had rolling outages so that the whole state could stay afloat. So I think that they need to tighten up their regulatory commission, the regulatory agencies, so that the residents don't get slammed with these types of high energy bills for this 1 week of disruption where they haven't even had energy. That's incredible that they're doing that. And they need to have a backup plan. You know, this market rate that they have down there apparently is not working. So I think it's a regulatory environment that needs to change, but they have not had in place.
What do you think here, Mo, particularly you in California, and California has dealt with similar issues, and now we're dealing with the political issue, the political fallout in Texas. They're asking for Governor Greg, there's calls for Governor Greg Abbott to resign. You know, some people are talking about, well, do we recall Governor Abbott? They're talking about recall of Governor Gavin Newsom there in California. So dealing with that situation in California, how does Texas move forward from here? But the other thing too is that we want to, is it every time that a disaster like this strikes and a governor mismanages it, do we have to always call for some sort of recall action?
There are two parts to this. There's the political aspect, and yes, we want to point the finger at someone, we want to blame someone, but there's also, more importantly, the infrastructure portion of this. You hinted at it. Here in California, we were dealing with a lot of fires, which were started specifically by the electrical companies in the region, their equipment, and also their buildings. And so we have an infrastructure problem. We can talk about Flint and water. We can talk about California and the electricity which started fire. Now we can talk about Texas and their machinery, which has not been adapted for the cold weather. Just getting rid of the politician or the governor who's in that seat doesn't address the fundamental problem. So until we do, and the infrastructure problem is a nationwide problem, and we're only dealing with this ad hoc in the sense of after we've had a disaster or a catastrophe, which means that there are going to be more catastrophes having nothing to do with whoever may be in power at that time. Now, Governor Abbott in Texas might have or should have done a better job as far as managing the situation, but that doesn't go to the prevention of the situation. And until we have that real infrastructure conversation from coast to coast and everywhere in between, then we're going to have these problems again and again and again. And simply just changing the person who is responsible or tasked with cleaning up after the fact is not going to get to the heart of the matter.
It's not going to get to the heart of the matter, right, Janice? And
I agree with that.
Right. One thing, and real quick too, Janice, I want you to respond to that. One thing that we know that America is not is a culture of preparedness, right? And so that's what this is all about. You know, it's a culture of lack of preparedness, culture of lack of investment. And so you kind of hinted at it earlier, Janice. How do we make that quick pivot? First of all, how do we train the collective American psyche to stop being suddenly aware of climate calamities and infrastructure deficient calamities, right? Only when disaster strikes. This is the only time when we start having this conversation nationally or as a collective public is when, okay, we see these big, massive disasters in places like whether it's Hurricane Katrina or Hurricane Harvey in Houston, and now we have this situation in Texas. But, you know, we've got to make that quick pivot, that transition soon to better infrastructure. We got to make those investments now, and we got to make that quick pivot soon away from old school fossil fuel run economies to now clean energy.
You're absolutely correct. That touches on one part of my life when I was in Washington, D.C., which I was there for 30 years. I worked for the mayor, and I was the communications director for the Emergency Preparedness Office, the agency which we worked very much in tandem with the Federal Emergency Preparedness Office. And it is a culture. It is something that our leadership, but also our communities have to be prepared for. So Washington, D.C. did not see the level of emergencies that other regions in the country do. But when Washington, D.C., which is a southern town for all practical purposes, was slammed 10 years ago with over 15 inches of snow, and it kept snowing and kept snowing, and even just 5 years ago in 2016, I was there, and it was snowing and snowing, and I had to get a flight out. And it was amazing. So it has to be a culture shift to constantly be prepared. And with climate change on the horizon, I know from Michigan, I've never seen the warmth that we had. We had 40 and 50-degree days in January, unprecedented. And then now we're back to our regular 7 degrees and are below zero. But it's about training people. It has to be curriculums in school, elementary, high school. It has to be in college. And then it has to be for the citizenry to be prepared, to have equipment in their home, to have a backup of water, to have a backup of emergency supplies and pantry supplies. So it has to start well in advance of the emergency, the calamity that you mentioned. Otherwise, we're going to continue to see this. So the culture shift and our education in our school systems, as well as our outreach, our public information outreach. I think we did it very well in Washington, D.C. when I was there to get people prepared and to get neighbors, assisting neighbors with the whole shoveling. We did that months in advance because we were bracing for the 1 or 2 snows that Washington will get. And we had young people signing up to shovel out those disabled residents as well as those seniors. I mean, we had a walk your block. We had all kinds of things in place so that when the snow did hit, we were ready for it. So it's got to be a culture shift and an educational and public awareness process that has to start now for the future.
Right. And Mo, in fact, I'm going to go to break real quick. But yeah, we need like a duck and cover model for the climate crisis age. Remember, like the Cold War age. And duck and cover obviously was not sufficient. Like you can't duck and cover yourself from a nuclear blast. But we need something. We need that kind of mindset or that kind of preparation model for the climate crisis age. Hold on one second. I want you to respond to that. Mo Kelly is out there in Los Angeles, KFAI Radio, and Janice Hazel is in Detroit, Michigan Chronicle, also political strategist up there in Michigan. Let's take a very quick break here on our roundtable session on Reality Check. We will be here on 96.1 FM, 900 AM, wordradio.com, Word TV, Word app. We'll be right back.
Did you know you can use LIHEAP to pay your PICO bill? Last year, PICO customers received almost $17 million in free LIHEAP support. This year, take advantage. This deal is first come, first served. Apply now. Call 800-34-HELP-4.
Word Radio is independent black media.
And we're able to stay independent because of our 4WURD movement and members like you.
Treat yourself to the treat of buying a WURD membership. It's less than a quarter a day. That's less than a bag of chips. And we really, truly need to keep this platform going so that we can stay connected as we reimagine our community in 2021.
Start or renew your 4WURD membership today at wordradio.com/4WURD or call 215-425-7875. Word Radio. Independent black media. Word Radio celebrates Black History Month with Black Artist Story 365. Brought to you by Southwest Leadership Academy Charter School.
Welcome to Black Artist Story 365. My name is Envy McKee. Get into this episode where we explore the art and artistry of Academy, Emmy, and Golden Globe award-winning actress, director, and producer, Regina King. Part 1. Regina Renee King was born in Cincinnati, Ohio, and grew up in Los Angeles, California. In 1985, she played the role of Brenda Jenkins on the television series 227. You remember Brenda? Miss Mary's daughter. Then she went on to play in just about every iconic Southern California black coming-of-age film in the repertoire. It started with John Singleton's Boys in the Hood, Poetic Justice, and Higher Learning. In 1995, she was featured in the iconic film Friday. The next year, she starred with Martin Lawrence in A Thin Line Between Love and Hate, and then she was in Jerry Maguire as Marcy Tidwell. You know, the wife of Academy Award winner Cuba Gooding Jr.'s character. In the movie Enemy of the State, she played Will Smith's character's wife. Child, Regina King done been in How Stella Got Her Groove Back, Mighty Joe Young, Down to Earth, Daddy Daycare, Legally Blonde 2, Red, White, and Blonde, A Cinderella Story, Ray, Miss Congeniality 2, Armed and Fabulous, and the iconic This Christmas, to name a smattering. Lest we forget is Queen Duchess Regina King's iconic voice of both Huey and Riley Freeman for the animated series The Boondocks. For the culture. So that's it for this episode of Black Artist Story 365. My name is Envy McKee. To hear more, tune in to The Envy McKee Show, Friday nights, 7 to 10 p.m., right here on WURD.
Black Artist Story 365 was brought to you by Southwest Leadership Academy Charter School and the Pennsylvania Lottery. Get to winning with Win Win Win, the new scratch-off from the Pennsylvania Lottery, with top prizes of $500,000. Players must be 18 or older. Please play responsibly. Benefits older Pennsylvanians every day.
WURD Radio is proud to broadcast Monday, February 22nd at noon, the 6th annual Jefferson Salutes Martin Luther King Jr.'s Vision, featuring Dr. Michael Eric Dyson, who will be discussing his most recent book, Tears We Cannot Stop. Tune in February 22nd at noon for this amazing discussion, brought to you by Thomas Jefferson University and Jefferson Health.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDRadio.com.
All right, we're back at it here on our Roundtable edition. Janice Hazel, Mo Kelly, Roundtablist here on Reality Check WURD. Go ahead, Mo. Wanted you to respond to that last conversation we were having before we went to break.
You can't assume that people understand what you mean by duck and cover. We come from the generation where we had these nuclear war drills under threat of a nuclear attack, where we would get under our desk, and if we were outside, we'd lay down next to the curb as if that was going to protect us. But it highlights the point of how our leaders today grew up in a post-Cuban Missile Crisis world, in a Cold War world, in an arms race world. And many times our focus was crafted around those ideas. Imagine a world if we grew up in a climate change Cold War, where our focus was on climate change and the environment as opposed to nuclear arms. Imagine if we were more concerned about healthcare and we allocated our money accordingly. We have a world now, as far as the United States, where we're more concerned about defense and arms and that segment of our economy, as opposed to, as I said before, providing for our infrastructure and even healthcare for that in that regard. If we think about the Roman Empire, it did not fall because of external forces. It fell because of internal strife, internal problems with its own infrastructure and its own classification of people of poor and the economic stratification of their own city and country. So if we can learn from the lessons of just other fallen empires, we are suffering from a lack of vision, and where there's no vision, the people will perish. If we have a vision for the future, which is inclusive of people and also understands where our priorities should be, not only be in terms of defense, then we can turn this around. But unfortunately, we're so short-sighted and very narrow-minded. We're our own worst enemy, I would say.
Yeah, we are. We're short-sighted. There's lack of vision, lack of awareness. Also, everything's a knee-jerk reaction, and so we're not proactive. Absolutely. Janice, I want to go back to you on, talking about how we're getting through this pandemic. And a lot of folks feel like, and I can't wait to hear what you also have to say about this too, Mo. A lot of people feel like President Biden now is, with more than a month in office, and understand he had a very rocky transition. It was not an ideal transition. Then we had an attack on the U.S. Capitol. These are very unprecedented and extenuating circumstances on many levels, but people feel like the president is not moving fast enough. We have still not passed pandemic relief, and everyone's agreed that, hey, we're going to have to use budget reconciliation to do this, to circumvent filibuster. Senate Democrats have agreed to, they've passed the procedure for that. What's taking so long? So the president, I know he has a penchant for bipartisanship, but I think this is one of those issues here where people just want to see something get done. I mean, there's polling showing an overwhelming number of even Republican voters, like 81, 82% of Republican voters are saying, yeah, we're good. Please pass the pandemic relief. Is it taking too long, Janice?
I think it is taking too long. And I think that the hyper-partisan back and forth, the new bipartisan problem-solving caucus in the House, all of that, miss me with that. Let's get an ink pen out and let's just go ahead with the executive order and get it done. We now are I think 3 weeks away from the March 14th deadline, where the benefits for those people who lost their jobs due to the pandemic, their companies, their restaurants, all of that, are really taking a heavy hit. So we need to go ahead and get it done. Bipartisan ism is a great thing, but we have seen the hypocrisy of our Republican counterparts, and they're not willing to. I think we need to just move forward. So I think this is where he does need to take out the power of the pen and just move it forward, because we're wasting time. In a minute, it's going to be March.
Yeah, bipartisanship, I think, Mo, results from when people are saying when the public, the body politic sees results, when it sees outcomes. Yeah, then you can get some bipartisanship, because you've got Republican voters who are saying, hey, you know what, we like this pandemic relief package you put together. So now everyone's just waiting for him to get it passed.
I would say that bipartisanship is more suited for when you're not in an emergency, when you're not in a pandemic, when you do have time, literally you have time to hash out a bill which is more appealing to the majority of legislators. But Joe Biden was elected as president to lead. And at this point, we're past impeachment. I would say you've got most of your nominees that you want for your cabinet. Merrick Garland's in place for all intents and purposes. I'm with Janice on this one. Now's the time. You have to use the bully pulpit and make that decision. You don't necessarily need to look for consensus, but mold that consensus and just go forward as the president of the United States and worry about the political implications later. I have noticed that the president is laying out his immigration reform plan. That's nice. I get it. I understand the need for it, but it's not one of the higher priorities, I would think, for this administration at this time. COVID relief needs to be done yesterday, last week, last month. Get that out of the way. And I understand he's worried about the clock because pretty soon we'll be talking about the midterms. We know historically the sitting president's party doesn't do well in the midterms. I get all that. But still, there has to be an order of priorities, and COVID relief has to be at the top, and it needs to be done now.
What is the order of priorities, you think, Janice, right? Okay, so we get COVID relief passed. At one point last week, pre-Texas disaster, I was saying it's got to be voting rights advancement next. But now we've got this disaster in Texas. And it's not just Texas. It's like throughout the southwestern United States, where we're saying like Arkansas, Mississippi. A lot of these places are getting hit. We got the situation, of course, Mo, like you've seen that firsthand in California. Now it's infrastructure and climate crisis investment and needing to do that right away. But what do you think that order of priorities is after we finish pandemic? What else do we need to prioritize after that?
Well, I'm going to be a little selfish here. Something that I worked on 32 years ago now, working with Congressman Conyers, was a reparations bill. I think that we need to take a stab at it. We chatted about this a little bit last month, but there was a hearing last Wednesday on H.R. 40, the legacy bill number that Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee held under the Constitution Committee, and that was very interesting. We do need to talk about that. And I think that now's the time to push it forward. Yes, we need immigration. We need a number of things, but I know that I'm still waiting for my 40 acres and a mule. And I think that that will help a lot of people, Black people. So we've been back burnering it. And I would like to see the Biden administration take a big leap to help move this forward and talk about it. He did say something about it last week in his CNN town hall, but I spoke with Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee last week, right after the hearing. And, she wants to move forward. We can move forward. Last year was the first time since 1989 when I was on staff and we introduced that legislation, it got anything moved forward. So we need to definitely, I think, put that on the table. I also talked with Bob Johnson, founder of BET, and he said, now is the time. He said last year was the time, but now is the time to put it and move it forward. And I think that all the political capital that Black people have expended in getting this president in place and other members of Congress, we need to move that forward. So that's one thing I'm selfishly saying. To have.
And I don't think you even need to describe it as selfish, because I know a lot of folks want to see something done as far as, and that bill HR 40 specifically for creating a commission to determine what the exact extent of reparations will be, because I have not seen sort of that consensus figure, like how much would reparations be. I don't see, I don't know what the price tag with that would be A lot. I mean, I've seen different numbers kind of thrown about over the years. I want to ask you real quick, Janice, and Mo, I definitely want you in on this conversation while we got several more minutes. But okay, well, when we move forward, okay, more likelihood that it'll pass the House, potentially. I think we've got nearly 160 co-sponsors on that bill so far. But how do we get it passed in the Senate?
Well, there's a public awareness component of it that needs to happen that has not happened over the years. And I'm talking 32 years I've been dealing with it. And we know that McConnell and others are going to be naysayers. We've even got Herschel Walker. We've got this new Congressman Owens, I believe, out of Utah. But we've got to work on these Senate members and get them to understand this is for past grievances that this country sanctioned, and we're still hurting as a place.
Can I say this though? Can I throw this in here, Janice? I feel like with the general white population in the U.S., I don't think the altruistic morality conversation is going to work as much anymore with reparations. I think it's time to set the business case. Hey, listen, if you don't pass some form of reparations, you are exacerbating, you're creating a national security threat, one. Two, we've already learned, I mean, Citibank did a study that came out last year saying that the American economy has lost $16 trillion over 10. We need to start putting out those numbers. Like, hey, look at how much money the American economy has lost. Look how much it could make if suddenly you eliminated racism or you put together some sort of reparations package. And Citibank, no less, said this. You know, the economy would actually gain $5 trillion overnight.
It's a wealth
if you were to
transfer.
take this kind of right. So I think that I think it's time to start maybe reframing or retweaking the reparations discussion or argument. Start making it a solid business case, other than saying that's just my view on that.
Well, I think you're absolutely right.
I think we might find make some headway on it.
That is exactly what Bob Johnson is saying. He has built a business case, if you get a chance to look at it, and he's put numbers to it. That still needs to be studied, but it is a wealth transfer, and it is a business proposition, and I think you're absolutely
but beyond, right. And real quick, Mo, again, beyond that wealth transfer, even that languaging right there, okay, if I'm a white person, and because we're 15% of the population, and we're going to have to rely on their government to get something like a reparations package passed. So we need to answer the question for the rest of society, what's in it for me, right? If I'm the average white guy who's like, I don't like this whole reparations thing, well, explain, what's in it for me? Go ahead, Mo.
Well, I think you're both right and you're both wrong, with all great due respect. For example, in California, we have passed the reparations study bill. It is now law in California. And you think California? Yes, California, they're actually studying it. But if we talk about the sense of urgency with this particular president in Congress, we're talking about having a conversation of not only the study, but actually the allocation. And I don't see a world in which, look, Senator Joe Manchin just said, I'm not even voting for $15 an hour as part of the COVID relief package. He doesn't even believe in that. So I don't believe a Joe Manchin or a John Tester in Montana or any of these senators, which, to Charles's point, represent these white constituencies, is going to put their political name on the line to support something like this. So I think that's the reality that we're up against. But Janice, you're absolutely right. We have to reframe the conversation and make sure that there is a level of awareness to why it's important. Yeah. Why it's necessary. I don't know if that's going to be enough.
Because the slave owners, the slave masters, they got reparations.
Exactly.
You know,
well,
that history
Native Americans
there, right.
and Japanese Americans have gotten reparations in this country. So there is precedent for it. Most people don't know it. Maybe not on the size and scope of the number of African Americans, but no, there is precedent for that. I just don't know, and I'm very cynical in this regard. I don't believe America will ever treat us any other way than how they have treated us for the past 400 years.
Yeah. You know what? We should have next time we do a roundtable session. Let's discuss that. Let's dedicate a little bit more time to it, because I know I can hear some listeners out there now. You know, they started like turning their volume dials up. Yeah, reparations is a hot topic always on WURD, and particularly on this program. I just think we have to think about, like, okay, methodically, how are we going to get something like this passed? Like, what are the stages? I do feel like, and I'm not saying this is you, Janice, because you've worked on Capitol Hill. But I feel like there are a lot of reparations advocates out there have not been completely realistic with themselves about, okay, well, how do we get this thing passed? Because it's going to have to go through a process, a legislative process to get it passed. unfortunately, but that's just the way it's going to have to work. And then to your point, Mo, there's that micro reparations movement, looking at, okay, are there opportunities for micro reparations in cities and states, like what you were just talking about in California? Let me let you both go. We've been talking with Janice Hazel, Michigan Chronicle, up there in Detroit, Michigan. Let that backdrop once more. Missing Detroit, missing both your home cities and hometowns. Can't wait to get back to them after the pandemic's over. Janice Hazel, MichiganChronicle.com, and at Janice Hazel, by the way, on Twitter, on social media, and Mo Kelly of the Mo Kelly Show, KFAI Radio. Go to at Mr. Mo Kelly on Twitter.com. Also here on Reality Checks Roundtable. Thanks so much to you both. Appreciate it. Be safe.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. Okay, let's take a break. When we come back on the other side, actually, phone lines are open. Phone lines are open. Maybe we can have a little bit more of that reparations conversation while we have open phone lines here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Janice might tune in and see what everyone's saying. 215-634-8065.
I will.
Toll free, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
Livelihood, WURD Radio's new initiative, connecting Black Philadelphians with jobs, entrepreneurship resources, small business development information, and financial literacy tools. Tune in to WURD Radio for our weekly livelihood segments and every weekday show. For a full schedule, visit wordradio.com/livelihood. For more information on livelihood, visit wordworks.com. That's WURD-WORKS.com. WURD Radio celebrates Black History Month with Black Artist Story 365. Brought to you by AARP, Thomas Jefferson, and New Voices for Reproductive Justice.
Welcome to Black Artist Story 365. My name is Envy McKee. Get into this episode where we explore the art and artistry of Trinidadian American, Tony Award-winning actor, voice actor, singer, dancer, composer, choreographer, costume designer, visual artist, and director, Jeffrey Holder. Part 1. King star Uncle Jeffrey was an August Leo, born Jeffrey Lamont Holder of Port of Spain, Trinidad and Tobago, the youngest of 5 children of Louise de France and Arthur Holder, who had immigrated from Barbados. Bosco Holder taught Jeffrey painting and dancing and recruited him to join a small folkloric dance troupe he had formed, the Holder Dancing Company. Bosco was 16, listen, and Jeffrey was 7. Okay? When Bosco left for London, Jeffrey was left in charge of the dance company as its director and lead performer. Soon after arriving in Brooklyn, he joined the Catherine Dunham's dance school, where he taught folkloric forms for 2 years. From 1955 to 1956, he performed with the Metropolitan Opera Ballet as a principal dancer. He left the ballet to make his Broadway debut in the Harold Arlen and Truman Capote musical, House of Flowers. While working on House of Flowers, he met Alvin Ailey, with whom he later worked extensively, and his future wife and muse, Carmen de Lavalade. After the show closed, he starred in an all-black production of Waiting for Godot in 1957. As a choreographer, because you know he's got all them lists of things that he was masterful at, Holder created dance pieces for many companies, including Alvin Ailey, American Dance Theater, for which he provided choreography, music, and costumes for Prodigal Prince in 1967, and the Dance Theater of Harlem, for which he provided choreography, music, and costumes for Douglas in 1974. He was director, costume designer, and choreographer, as we mentioned, in The Wiz in 1974. And in 1978, he directed and choreographed the Broadway musical Timbuktu. So that's it for this episode of Black Artist Story 365. My name is Envy McKee. To hear more, tune in to The Envy McKee Show, Friday nights, 7 to 10 p.m., right here on WURD.
Black Artist Story 365 was brought to you by AARP Pennsylvania, Thomas Jefferson, and New Voices for Reproductive Justice.
Celebrating Black history all year long. Fannie Lou Hamer.
We are sick and tired of being sick and tired.
This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Philadelphia, independent Black media. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
As you know, we here at WURD Radio have a devoted team of hosts, producers, staff. We're doing everything we can to serve black people, to serve the black community, just like our now ancestor Cody Anderson did. And as other media outlets are grappling with trying to discover the needs of the black community, WURD puts those needs front and center, and we fight for them every day, all day here on WURD. As we enter the final week of Black History Month, we know that our work is a part of history, a history of black voices that have refused to be silenced. We honor and call the names of those who've made black history: Mary McLeod Bethune, James Baldwin, Garrett Morgan, Elijah McCoy, Malcolm X. The observance of his assassination was yesterday, was just this Sunday, and the list goes on and on. But how are you making black history? Because we all do collectively. This is one of the most challenging times in our history, and we need you to stand with us. We stand together for $90 per year, $1.73 per week, just 24 cents per day. You can take action. Let us know that what we do matters to you. Let us know that what we all do as a community collectively matters to us. Sign up today at wordradio.com/join now and type in the name of a person in black history that you honor, or you can type in my name, the host that sent you, and be heard. Find more information at wordradio.com/join now. Phone lines are open at 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Let me go to Rick out of Germany, who's calling in for a reality check. Mr. Rick, how are you doing? How are you feeling, sir?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir, I can. How are you feeling? How are you feeling today?
I stopped eating again at the advice of a friend, the wife, and I'm just hanging in there by my teeth.
Okay.
But let me say goodbye to Brother Cody Anderson, and
yes, sir.
Let me say to his spirit, he has to stay with us in this time. The struggling poor and the middle class who are struggling to give back. May his spirit stay with us. Second, you tried to make the case for the Congress not paying reparations as a possible security threat in black America. I suggest to you that the President and the Congress have no fear of the black community, poor or middle class, standing as a security threat in America. They will be violently put down from the American military and the militia movement across America.
Yeah, and let me clarify too. When I made that statement, I was saying that it's if you're going to have nearly 50 million people in a country in a constant state of despair, that's a social destabilization. That's a recipe for social destabilization. That's not to fear black people like suddenly becoming violent because they don't get reparations. That is when you have that level of destabilization from constant poverty, constant permanent unemployment, from constant public health and environmental degradation. That is a huge segment of the population that's causing that's a national security, that in and of itself. And I'm just saying, let's figure out different ways to frame it, other than saying, oh, we need to do a wealth transfer, other than to say, oh, we're owed. Of course, we know we should have got the 40 acres and a mule. We know we should have gotten those assets a long time ago. We should have gotten or our ancestors should have gotten reparations at the exact same time that those slave owners did. But now, what's the business case to get everyone on board, to get it realistically passed as a piece of legislation, since we have to rely on this process to get something like that?
Charles, I would say in closing that the sister you had on, she spoke about using the pen of the president to get the ball rolling on reparations and pandemic relief. I suggest to you the power is not with the president. The power is with the Congress and the Senate especially.
Yeah, I agree. No, you're right. You're right.
You.
So thank you, Mr. Rick. I appreciate you. Please hang in there. Please stay healthy. Keep us posted. Keep calling in, because I'd love to hear from you to know that you're doing well. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Let me go to Joe out of Germantown, who's calling in for a reality check.
Hey, Brother Charles. How you doing, good brother?
Brother Joe, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine. All praises be to Allah. First, I want to say to Brother Cody, rest in peace, rest in power, my brother. I love you. Rest in peace, rest in power. You know, Charles, when you did your promo about Mary McLeod Bethune, Malcolm X, and others like that, I say this to you, Charles, in the spirit of these people, these ancestors that you mentioned, including Brother Cody as well as Mary McLeod Bethune and Malcolm X and others. Charles, I don't give a damn about how white people feel about this or how insensitive they are. We got to stop that. We're gonna push this thing through. We're going to demand it like the situation you had.
Wait a second, Joe. I'm not concerned about how white people feel either, but I'm posing this question because people who we're all for reparations, but how do you get it passed? How do you Joe, listen, Brother Joe, I understand where you're coming from, but how do you get it passed? You're still relying, we're going to have to rely on 50 other senators to pass something like H.R. 40. So how do you sell that case? I'm being realistic with you. This is how it works. This is how that legislative process works.
Charles, you do it this way. You keep on doing what you keep struggling, you keep agitating. See, Charles, you know yourself, when you look at Dr. King.
Well, of course you keep agitating. You keep agitating, but you also make sure you have a plan. I don't want to keep, but he wants to agitate. He wants to be 30, 40 years from now, still agitating, but you got nothing passed.
But Charles, but see, Charles, it's very strategic where you got to do it. You got to continue to put the pressure on these white folks. See, Charles, the white folks I know, they respect when you stick to it and you keep on. See, how you think Dr. King and them got the stuff that they got through? We know when we're doing with white folks, it's going to always be a struggle. We know that.
But Dr. King had to have those difficult conversations with President Lyndon B. Johnson, who had to also have those difficult conversations and do the sausage making and also but the arm twisting. No, even Dr. King understood it, and that's how he got the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act.
And I agree with you, Charles. I'm not disagreeing with all of them. That's what I'm saying, Charles. We can't get discouraged because we're going to run into harshness. That's my only point, Charles. I don't care about the harshness we face. We know we're going to face that, but that shouldn't stop us from doing what we got to do. Keep on doing what we have to do.
I didn't say it should. I didn't say it should. Yeah, you're right.
By all means, like Malcolm said, by all means necessary, Charles. This is what we got to look at when we deal with them. Charles, on my job where I worked at West Wick over in South Carolina, I closed the distant hospital. Charles, when I deal with these racist white folks, whether it was in management, I didn't let them because I got it knocked down one time, stop me. I kept on pushing till I finally won more battles than stuff. I may have lost a few battles here and there, but I ultimately won the war because I kept on. I'm not going to let you beat me down to the point where I'm going to stop. I'm going to keep on, and I kept on till I finally got all the financial stuff I was deserved. I got all the financial stuff. I got my record cleared, all the stuff that I had to deal with the racist bigots at the hospital. I dealt with them, but I stood the test of time, and I won in the end. And that's how we as black people got to look. You know you deal with these Caucasian people. You know what you're up against, but you cannot let that discourage you. We're going to continue to fight for these reparations no matter what it takes, whether it's to be the president, the Congress, the Senate, arm twisting, whatever. We're going to keep this fight on till we get what we deserve, Charles. That's the mindset we have to have, Charles. That's simple as that.
That's right.
That's the mindset to have.
I did exactly. I didn't say otherwise, and I think that I'm just saying that I'm being realistic with people about how that legislative process works to get something like an H.R. 40, and even people do agree that H.R. 40. I mean, right now at this point, H.R. 40 is just to establish the commission that does that deep dive study to determine, okay, well, what's the specific price tag for reparations? What does that reparations look like? So you know, you got so to your point, I think it's a both and here that we're missing here, Brother Joe, because I think we're both on the same page. It's like, yeah, you got to continue the agitation and being vocal, continue the protest, but to get it done, because I'm you know how I am. I'm like, okay, well, what's the plan to get it done? What's the outcome? Because I don't want to be here, and I don't think you want to be here 30, 40 years from now, or your kids and your grandkids 30, 40 years from now still talking about this thing, and nothing's moved. The needle hasn't moved. I like to move the needle. And so I'm like, okay, well, how do you get it passed?
And Charles, let's say one more thing in closing.
Sure.
Brother Charles?
Yes, go ahead. Yeah, Brother Joe, go ahead. Real quick.
See, and you're right, Charles. See, but one thing I remember, Charles, I'm 59 years old. When I was in North Philadelphia, Charles, if you told black people back then, we know we'd have had a black president, now we got a black female vice president. If you told black people back then that you would get a black man in the city, they thought you was crazy. You know what I mean? If you thought you was a black, if you get a black president and female vice president back in the 70s, some of our elders looked at you like you was on crack cocaine or something. They never see that happening,
I remember.
man.
I'm happy both my late mother and my late grandmother got to see things like what happened. Unfortunately, my grandmother had to see also Trump come into office as well. But no, I hear you. I agree. Joe, I got to let you go because I got a lot of callers here. But thank you. No, you're making some good points. Definitely not losing sight of that cause and that energy and the need to continue that protest and that demand. But, you got, as that's happening on a parallel track, that's exactly how Dr. King did it. He kept the pressure on with the protest, but he also knew the shrewd chess-playing legislative strategy that you needed to engage to get stuff like the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act passed. Gary out of Southwest is calling in for a reality check. Gary?
Hey, how are you doing, Charles?
Hey, what's happening? All right.
I'm good. I just wanted to first say my prayers go out to Cody Anderson's family. We lost a real icon in the black community, and I just wanted to say that.
Thank you.
But, Charles, we're talking about reparations, and I could care less, or I'm not concerned about how white people feel, because even though slave owners got paid at the end of so-called end of slavery, we can go to the Japanese and we bomb Japan. We helped rebuild their cities and gave them so-called reparations. But why is it when it comes to black people, it's a no-no? And white people who get offended and say no, but I hear people, I've talked to colleagues before, they say, well, I didn't have anything to do with slavery. No, but the thing is, you still benefited through that.
Yeah, you still benefit and still benefit.
Yeah. Yes, and still going forward. So here's my thing. People you just think like King, Malcolm, Medgar, you can go down the line, who spoke up and gave their lives. Just like this thing is coming out now with this letter that came out about Malcolm about the government conspiracy. We all know that's real. That's real. That stuff is real. And until we as black people learn to stick together and stop this petty stuff going back and forth, and the people that we put in office to be our leaders, if they're not serving us, then they don't need to be there. They're comfortable. They're too comfortable, and they're not standing up and fighting for our rights. Like here in Philly, when you're talking about even the pandemic earlier, this is a disgrace the way the black community is treated in this city and in this country. Yeah. So until we come together and change our priorities, because guess what? I could care less about the Eagles, the Sixers, the Phillies, the Flyers, or whatever team it is, until we get the justice that we deserve, Charles. We get caught up in entertainment too much. And I just wanted to say that if we don't come together and really love one another like we should and stand for one another, and I'm talking to our elected officials right now that are out there, our people are suffering in Philly. We're the poorest big city in the country, Charles. Our schools are deplorable. Come on. But, we got to get it together. But thank you so much for what you do, brother. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, brother. I appreciate you. Let me go to Derek out of North Philly calling in for a reality check. Derek?
Brother Charles, love, peace, blessings, and prosperity.
Brother Derek, peace,
Charles?
peace.
Charles?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me?
You're going in and out. Can you hear me?
We can hear you fine.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Brother Charles, good morning. Love, peace, blessings, and prosperity. I'd like to give my condolences to the Anderson family. My experience with Cody was more over the radio waves, but I did meet him one time, but he came off very, very super over those radio waves alone. And so you know what the impact was when you met his flesh and blood and spirit. And, Charles, Cody Anderson, to me, he was that father knows best type of guy, and that's how he came off on the radio to me personally as a father figure. And when him and Bill would be on the radio together, when I would call in, I would call them the dynamic duo, because they sound like they were brothers, and at times they sound like they were a father and son relationship. So I just thought they were dynamic. The other thing, Charles, the other thing about reparations, I can only imagine our ancestors, shaking their heads like, well, what's taking this so long for us to get this? For over 100 years, we've had positions, and but not to put a damper on it, but it's the power belongs to the people. There's power in the Senate and things like that, but the ultimate power belongs to us, the people in the United States, and that's the power that they would love for us to take not advantage of, but take for granted. Because I think reparations could have been resolved. We got enough smart people, professors, economic professionals, that we could have pushed this agenda way hard a long time ago. But people didn't want to talk about reparations. You talk about reparations in the 70s. They were still thinking about we was looking for 40 acres and a mule. And so it just shows that, you know, as far as I'm concerned, it's on us why it hasn't come to fruition. So let's get it together. It's upon us. It's incumbent upon us.
Exactly. And while it's upon us, you know, being smarter and more strategic about that and just, you know, smartly framing it. And you're absolutely right, because for a long time now, see, people forget, I mean, the reparations debate, reparations advocacy was considered on the political fringes. I mean, with the exception of the late great Congressman John Conyers working on it in Congress. I mean, he was just he was very adamant, and he kept pushing this in the Congress every year while he was in there. And he was the only one in sort of that, you know, so-called mainstream political space that kept pushing for that. But you know, we've reached a point now where it's a part of our mainstream black political discourse. For a long time, it was fringe. It was considered fringe politics to even discuss it. But you're absolutely right. It should have been happening. That conversation should have been happening, one, from the very beginning, and two, so now that we're having it, let's make sure that we're being very shrewd. I'm talking about, like, you know, very business-minded, shrewd, and you know, on the chess table about it, like how we go about it, how we frame it, how we message it, how we get the deals done to get something like that passed. You know, make it, because you're relying on these processes and institutions to get something like this put together, because it's a lot of money, it's a lot of resources, right? So how do you do that? And I think people need to be realistic about that conversation, and plan and act accordingly. Derek, let me let you go so I can take a real quick. Timothy out of South Philly is calling for a reality check. Thanks so much, Derek. Appreciate you. Timothy?
Yes, how are you, sir?
How you doing?
My condolences go out to the Lomax family, sir. And I'm going to say this, that, you know, some people can talk about Cody, but I can talk about Cody from being in his atmosphere and around him. And I, one time with Dr. Burton, Dr. Frederick Burton from South Philly, we sat down and we had a nice conversation with David Barnes. He was a host who invited me and Dr. Burton on the show. And after it was over, Dr. Burton and myself and David Barnes, we had a good conversation. And as I was coming out of the studio, Cody could see you and put the will in you to give you confidence. I never forget that. He said to me,
he is always like that, yeah.
He would say, tell me, keep on doing what you're doing and keep on saying what you're saying. And you mean well. And he said, guess what? We need people like us. He didn't say like you. He said like us. So I said, I never forgot that about Cody, right? And anytime I was doing something positive that came with politics or education in the community, he would always inspire you. He would throw that smile on you. He'd throw that smile, man. And you know, when I think about him, I think about Bill, and I think about the father and son team. You know, wonderful, man. And I like the platform that y'all are at URD. We got that platform for us to hear all of you good people. And I'm going to make a comment about reparations. If people Herschel Walker don't want the money, then they don't have to take it. Just leave it in the pot. Move on, man. And let's do our thing. Because we're going to one day get it. It's going to be forever and a day. Brother Charles, always great, man.
Always good. No, I appreciate you, Brother Timothy. Thanks for calling in.
I appreciate you, my brother.
Be safe out there, please. Everyone that's listening and everyone that called in, I can't stress enough how much people need to keep safe, particularly in these dark, uncertain times. Please stay safe. Please stay safe from pandemic, and especially in places like Philadelphia and elsewhere. Stay safe from this violence and try to do the best you can to keep each other safe. Let's go ahead and take a break. Thanks everyone for calling in. Great spirited discussion on reparations. We need to have it when we come back. Speaking of violence, we're to talk with David Muhammad. David Muhammad is Executive Director of the National Institute for Criminal Justice Reform, and we're going to talk about the Office of Violence Prevention model in multiple cities that's being unveiled as we speak. David Muhammad is working on that. Let's take a break, and we'll be right back.
Toyota proudly presents In Their Own Words,
People who knew the U.S. Congress well knew that the Congress had a heart, a soul, and a conscience. Elijah Eugene Cummings was that conscience. Born in Maryland, the son of sharecroppers, Elijah began fighting for freedom in the early 60s when he and some friends worked to integrate a segregated swimming pool. He was 11 years old. A Phi Beta Kappa and proud HBCU graduate of Howard University, Congressman Cummings was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives in 1996. He was one of the most respected and effective advocates on Capitol Hill, who spoke these hauntingly prophetic and unforgettable words mere months before his death.
When we're dancing with the angels, the question will be asked, in 2019, what do we do to make sure we kept our democracy intact? Did we stand on the sidelines and say nothing 1 year ago today?
Toyota is pleased to feature African American icons expressing themselves in their own words. Toyota, let's go places.
Your child deserves to be educated in a safe and supportive learning environment. Southwest Leadership Academy Charter School, a tuition-free public school, is accepting applications for the 2021-2022 school year. SLAC's 2 locations offer single-gender classrooms in a dual-gender environment. Kindergarten and first-grade classrooms have a 15-to-1 student-teacher ratio. Students learn music, art, and fitness. Southwest Leadership educates the whole child, preparing students to become leaders. slacks-phila.org, Instagram at Southwest Leadership Academy, or email info@slacks-phila.org.
WURD Radio celebrates Black History Month with Black Artist Story 365. Brought to you by Pico and JD's Auto Body.
Welcome to Black Artist Story 365. My name is Envy McKee. Get into this episode where we explore the art and artistry of iconic Black sci-fi. First of all, Black science fiction isn't some newfangled subgenre of sci-fi that came around when Marvel decided to finally put out Black Panther as a movie. Black sci-fi has been around since the beginning. And if we're honest, it started in the beginning when God said, "In the beginning was the Word," and it was good. But we'll contend with the beginning being West Africa, where the very first Black sci-fi authors used the oral tradition for publishing. We'll also contend that the Word, in this case, was stories our ancestral griots told about creation, metaphysics, and culture. Stories of jumping universes that they shared as poetry and song and dance around bright hot fires, powered by the rhythmic thundering of the drum. So who are some of the greats in Black sci-fi? Like in any genre, it depends on who you ask. I got 5 on it that Octavia Butler would likely top most folk top 5 in Black spec fiction because of her 90s Parable series, which included Parable of the Sower and Parable of the Talents. Samuel R. Delany could be considered one of the OGs of the genre, and he taught at Temple University. Nalo Hopkinson is a renowned science fiction and fantasy writer, professor, and editor. Lest we forget Tanana Reeve Dew's The Good House, Black Rose, and Joplin's Ghost. Karen Lord's The Best of All Possible Worlds, N.K. Jemisin, The 100,000 Kingdoms, Stephen Barnes, Lion's Blood, Minister Faust, Nnedi Okorafor, Andrea Hairston, Jeffrey Thorne, Nisi Shaw, and Carl Hancock Rooks. And of course, Tommy Adeyemi, Children of Blood and Bone. So that's it for this episode of Black Artist Story 365. My name is Envy McKee. To hear more, tune into The Envy McKee Show, Friday nights, 7 to 10 p.m., right here on WURD.
Black Artist Story 365 is brought to you by Pico, powering communities, and JD's Auto Body and Painting for all your auto body and detailing needs.
I went to check on Pop today. We put our hands up to the glass as if we were touching. But really, the only touching part was that we both tried to smile.
That's no way to say hello or goodbye. COVID-19 vaccines are here, but until enough of us are vaccinated, we'll all still need to help slow the spread. Keep a 6-foot distance, wear a mask, and avoid indoor social gatherings. Learn more about vaccines and slowing the spread at cdc.gov/coronavirus. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check. We're not sure where David Muhammad is again. We were trying to get him last week. I was looking forward to this discussion. He's Executive Director of the National Institute for Criminal Justice Reform. I guess while Troy tries to locate him, we will just open up the phone lines. We'll keep the phone lines open. 2-1 phone lines will be open for the remainder of this hour, this 11 o'clock hour. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. As we head into the noon hour, we have a special salute to the vision of the late great Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. That conversation being facilitated, hosted by Thomas Jefferson Hospital. So we'll be heading into that. We'll more than likely we'll be transitioning at the noon hour into that special broadcast. You'll be hearing a number of remarks from folks meeting virtually, discussing the vision, the legacy of Martin Luther King during this Black History Month. So let's open up the phone lines: 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. As we try to, if we locate Mr. Muhammad, then we'll bring him on. But we can just keep those phone lines open: 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. We can't continue that conversation about reparations. There are other issues that are also bubbling up, also some breaking news as well coming out of the Supreme Court. I was just saying recently the Supreme Court had rejected the appeal by the Pennsylvania Republican Party that was, they were attempting to devalidate the ballots, devalidate mail ballots, or the mail ballot deadline in Pennsylvania. So the Supreme Court rejected that appeal, basically shut that case down. Justice Clarence Thomas was actually dissenting in that opinion, that majority opinion from the Supreme Court. Supreme Court also allowing the release of Donald Trump's tax returns and thus clearing the way for New York prosecutor to obtain the tax returns, and that will be used in a number of very intriguing and also very troubling cases for Donald Trump. So after he leaves office, finally, the Supreme Court is like, okay, let's release his tax returns because Republicans, conservatives, just trying to clean up their mess and they're trying to keep him out of prominence. So that's what that's all about. They couldn't do it when he was president, but they finally do it after he leaves, and so they feel safe enough to go ahead and do it. So that's happening there too in the Supreme Court. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. So yeah, so as far as Pennsylvania is concerned, Supreme Court will not hear that appeal of Pennsylvania's mail ballot deadline extension during the 2020 election. So state Republicans, when we got so many other more important issues to focus on in multiple places, Pennsylvania Republican Party is still just focused on destroying. It's not taking away, destroying people's right to vote. So the Republicans were trying to shift election law by shutting out courts from making changes to election procedures. And the Supreme Court saying the U.S. Constitution gives state legislatures the power to decide how elections are run, but that has in the past been understood to mean the normal legislative process, including sign-off from governors and judicial review of the law. So long and short of it is the Supreme Court rejecting the Pennsylvania GOP's attempt at trying to invalidate Pennsylvania's electoral college votes and validate the election. Interestingly enough, we had on Sunday talk shows, a whole round of Sunday talk shows with the exception of CNN, but you had like Meet the Press, you had This Week on ABC, you had also on CBS, Face the Nation. They all had like a lineup of Republican elected officials all still pushing the mythology that the election is invalid, that is illegitimate. And all the various white male anchors of these shows did not push back against that. They just basically let them on national TV on these big mainstream shows. They just allowed them to keep, this is still a thing. And they allowed them to just keep pushing that lie. And instead of just shutting it down or maybe even just going to break or just pulling those people off those programs. Because that's seditious, treasonous language. And you have actual elected officials, including in places like Pennsylvania, who are still pushing that. While in the meantime, let's not forget, introducing 165 bills in 33 states to destroy people's right to vote. That is happening right now in 33 state capitals, 165 bills in 33 state capitals. You need to call your state representative or your state senator now to find out what those bills are, who's sponsoring them, and what your state representative and state senator is doing about it. If they don't know anything about it, or if they don't have a plan to fight it, or if they don't have their own plan to counteract with a movement introducing bills or maybe 165 plus bills to enhance our right to vote, then they should not be in office. You should start looking for a replacement now. 215-634-8065, 8663-610900 here on Reality Check. Feel free to call in. We were unable to capture or to get David Muhammad, so I don't know. We'll try him next time. 215-634-8065. He's supposed to be available for a Cap Corner, so we had to get on Cap about that. It's not them, it's probably David Muhammad. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Janice Hazel on Facebook Live. You're watching us on WURD TV, our live stream on Facebook Live. Go to facebook.com/4word. Janice Hazel actually joined us when she was listening. I knew she was going to listen in. This conversation intrigued her, as it should, because she's worked long and hard on it. She worked long and hard on it with Congressman John Conyers when she was working for him. And she was saying, stay encouraged, demand and advocate locally and nationally for reparations for African Americans. And so that's Janice Hazel joining in. Some folks not, like Diane Fassett was saying, she felt like the attitude of one caller was not appealing, called it reverse racism. It's not reverse racism. Just to talk about, people being held accountable, holding society, holding governments accountable for atrocities, for mass atrocities, which is something that happens all throughout world history. It's something that governments do. It shouldn't be any different or framed any differently when we come to the subject of black people. And it should be not be misconstrued or falsely distorted as reverse racism. I don't understand. I never get that term. Like, that doesn't apply in this situation here. It's a mass genocidal atrocity that has been committed. The history on this is well documented. It's quite plentiful, tragically so. And it should have happened fully and completely during Reconstruction, and we would not be where we are in this place. So, people are trying to separate themselves from that history, or trying to separate themselves from that struggle or that war, that long-time war over racism, and they don't realize that, that actually, ending that war and ending that war on a just note actually provides material security for them too. I mean, this is we're all in this, really in the same boat. And if we continue to prolong this battle, this war, without any reconciliation, without any form of, as many are saying, reparations, it will just continue to get worse. Then we're just, we're then, all complicit in this, or, folks are complicit in destabilizing, destabilizing society. So, I mean, you got to figure, this has to be figured out. And that's where you set that business case down. Like, what's the price tag? What is the, what's not only the benefit to the people who be receiving those reparations packages, but, what's the benefit to the overall society that they live in? Yes, what's the benefit to, how have we improved their material conditions, but also how have we improved the overall conditions of the economy? How do you sell it? Because societies or cities like Philadelphia, actually, Philadelphia has an imperative here, for example, to eliminate its 40% poverty. Because if you don't eliminate it, it's like the city economically will continue to underperform. So, if you still have a situation here where you have countless millions of black people, descendants of the enslaved, in a nonstop cycle of poverty, that's not a good situation. That's not only a bad situation for black people, that is a bad situation for everybody, everyone. Like, you're content. You're then, if you accept that, and if you're allowing that to continue and to fester, then you're adding to an underperforming society. an underperforming economy, a less secure society, less secure communities, then that's what you're signing on to. So you have to resolve this. This is an existential threat. This unresolved issue of the worsening conditions of Black America is an existential threat to the collective United States of America. Full stop. To me, and this is the kind of conversation we need to start having, while also putting the history out there, having that that hard history lesson, and testing people on it. There needs to be like a national curriculum on this. That's why this is important. This is where you really start to make some headway here. But people need to hear. They need to hear that, like I said, that Citibank report. I mean, we get a major bank on Wall Street, no less, saying that, hey, listen, we got to fix this because everyone's losing money. Everyone's losing out. That's your business case right there. That's where, you get folks to buy in. That's where you start shutting people up. That's where you start shutting people down. That's what I'm trying to explain to folks. That's where you shut the detractors down, the anti-reparations. That's where you start shutting them down. It's like, oh, okay, well, then you must be okay with the economy losing $16 trillion more over 10 years. Oh, I thought you wanted to make $5 trillion for the economy over, because everybody benefits and everybody loses if this continues to stay unresolved. So that's how I'm just trying to come up with arguments and messaging, one, to get this thing passed. I mean, unless there's some people out there that just wants to, you do have people like that, where they just want to just wave a battle flag all day and scream whatever slogan at the top of their lungs, and then these issues and these problems just go unresolved into perpetuity. I'm not that type of dude. Like, I like to get things resolved. I like for these problems to get to get taken care of. And I look, as when it comes to politics and public policy, we have a process here, and so you got to get it passed. Okay, well, how do we get it passed? But you have some people out there, they just like to scream it at, they yell at it. It's a hill they want to die on, and I get it. And sometimes they like things being unresolved. I am willing to wager that the vast majority of us want to figure out an outcome. We want an actual solution. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Let me go ahead and take a break. We weren't able to get David Muhammad. That's okay. We'll just keep the phone lines open until we get into the 12 noon hour, before we get into that special broadcast that's coming up. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Monday Reality Check. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Okay, Her's new fire potato chips and cheese curls, they are spicy. Whew, they're hottest snacks yet. Hold on. Whew. But it's not just heat. There's some nice sweet and savory stuff going on too. Ooh, there's that heat again. It burns, but it burns so tasty. Ooh, that's hot. Find Her's Fire Snacks at your store today. Whew. Taste the flavor, feel the heat, break out the Her's.
Join WURD's Charles Ellison on Tuesday, February 23rd at 10 a.m. for a special broadcast in partnership with Philadelphia Forum for Faith, Law, and Giving for a conversation on the legacy of Reverend Dr. Leon Sullivan as we celebrate his extraordinary accomplishments and explore how we replicate and expand his strategies to build and sustain community and economic development. This discussion will feature community leaders in conversation with Charles Ellison. You won't want to miss this special broadcast, Tuesday, February 23rd at 10 a.m. exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Streaming live on WURDradio.com and the WURD Radio app, or watch live on WURD TV via Facebook and YouTube. WURD Radio is independent Black media.
And we're able to stay independent because of our forward movement and members like you.
Treat yourself to the treat of buying a WURD membership. It's less than a quarter a day. That's less than a bag of chips. And we really, truly need to keep this platform going so that we can stay connected as we reimagine our community in 2021.
Start or renew your forward membership today at WURDradio.com/forward or call 215-425-7875. WURD Radio. Independent Black media.
Reality Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app, 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Andrew out of Delaware County is calling in for a Reality Check. Andrew?
Yes, good morning to you.
Good morning.
I heard that commercial, which took me off of what I called in about.
It's okay.
We're all going to really miss Cody Anderson. To Bill, Kyle, Teresa, and wife Berna, condolences. And I wanted to share. I met Cody for the first time in Libreville, Gabon, for the second annual African American Summit that Dr. Leon Sullivan put on. And that's part of the answer I think that you're talking about right now is how do we make the connections with the larger diaspora, the larger global.
Right.
And but even before that happens, Charles, and this is what I called in about, it's like everybody has a story. But most people don't know their story in conjunction to the history of this country. And I'm talking about mainly white folks, because they're going to stand their ground like a lot of these Confederate sympathizers that are still around because they don't know their connection, the true connection to the growth of this country. You know? And so, they have to, Dr. King said, that you can't change someone's heart. And that's the real issue. That's the real issue. You can do all the policy and the laws, and that does help, but the moral arc is long suffering. So we all have to really get our story and connect it to the benefit of this country, like you said. The least among us are holding back, and they're not doing it themselves. It's a traditional learned behavior, not even behavior, it's a traditional thing in this country to keep people divided, So the story, we just have to figure out individually and collectively where our story connects to the larger picture. And like I said about that second annual African American Summit, that did it for me. Meeting Cody and really, as time went on, getting reconnected with, at that time, WHAT and WURD, and speaking up and connecting people to those voices and connecting people to the stories. So that's the only way, we
do. Yeah. We really need, people need to hear those stories. We are where we are now because of the lack of exposure to the storytelling. The lack of exposure to the history. These need to be mandatory history lessons in every American classroom. And that's benefiting everyone. That's benefiting our community. It provides us with a layer of defense because people get the full story and they understand where we're coming from. A lot of folks, believe it or not, and it is hard to hear this, but a lot of these folks out here, like the folks that, for example, attacked the Capitol, or the folks who were at Charlottesville, or the folks who are at there now staging insurgency and insurrection and domestic terrorism, they don't know the story. A lot of times they really, some people out now, some people do, they know the story and they just deep down racist. And there's a lot of other people out there who have not read that story, have not been taught that story. I mean, we have a situation now where multiple states, places like West Virginia, Utah, they're not only trying to destroy voting rights, but they're trying to destroy Black history curriculum, or the little bit of Black history curriculum that they have. They're trying to completely wipe it out of the textbooks, or to wipe it out of or to push it out of their classrooms. And that's a threat. That is an existential threat. That is an alarming threat to everyone, even to those white kids in Appalachia, in a place like West Virginia, or white kids out there in the Rockies, Mormons in Utah. Like, they need to learn that history is, learning that history, knowing that history is also in their best interest. Everyone needs to know that story. And the more people know that story, they hear that story, they're tested on that story, they get the full, complete history, like unfiltered American history, unfiltered Black history, and not just Black history in the United States, but also Black history before it came to the United States. The more people understand, the more people will also empathize with our position and want to get things like reparations passed, or help us in that struggle to get something like reparations passed, or something that completely improves the material condition, the material, social, economic condition of Black people in the United States. Let me go to Tyrone out of North Philly, who's calling in for a reality check. Mr. Tyrone?
Well, peace and blessings, Brother Charles. How are you today?
Peace. How are you doing?
Right. I'm great, my brother, and much love and respect to my WURD family. You know, Charles, before I make my point, I definitely want to give a shout-out to Bill and Kyle and to the Anderson family. You know, we lost a great brother, man, and someone who was always there for the folks and did everything he could to make sure things was all right for us. And, you know, Charles, you know, I just thank God I was on my way into Scoop USA to pick up the newspaper. And I'm walking across the street and hear this beep, 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 beep. And I turn around. There go Cody and Joe. Joey on the side, it's Gangsta Lean, and Cody like that. Ty, where you going? I'm on my way to school to pick up my papers to do my column. Be careful out here. I said, you know it too. So y'all got to be careful out here too. So I just wanted to share that little moment of glory because it was real good just to see the two brothers together. And man, right now we're definitely, you know, I know there's a lot of folks are devastated with the loss, but they need to be uplifted for who he was and the things that he did. But Charles, I'm calling in terms of not only reparation, but in terms of you and your conversation to Brother Joe, just trying to get him to understand that anything that we around reparation is legislation, and you were trying to make that point.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we can, you know, like you say, we can fuss, fight, and do all the things that we do, but it's still a legislative process, and folks got to understand that.
Right.
And in terms of all the things that we're going through, Charles, you know, I don't know, Brother Julius Stanton, I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's one of the writers of Scoop. He did a piece last week where he talked about all the Black communities that was established and what they had to go through and live through just to exist. And if you really look at history, you know, it just seems like we go from one period to a next, where one period we may have accomplished something, and then the next period we're fighting against what we had accomplished. So I just want to add to the conversation just to speak, but particularly to the young people in terms of this education, because they say we're dealing with a poor education system right now, but the thing is, they got to. You know, this is their hand they dealt with, so they got to make it work the best way, you know, they can to make it work for them. Because right now, we don't need any more excuses, Everybody got to be on board, like you always say, Charles. So thank you, my man.
It's a collective struggle.
For always allowing me to share.
And, you know, too, Mr. Tyrone, thank you for sharing that too, and I appreciate the condolences and the well wishes from everyone. WURD appreciates that for Cody Anderson, for Brother Cody Anderson, ancestor Cody Anderson, and his family. I appreciate that. But you know, you're absolutely right, and you know, we have a school system that is deliberately designed to keep those kinds of lessons away from our children, and to also keep those lessons, those essential lessons, those essential Black history lessons. That's why Black history is not a month. Black history is an imperative. Black history is an essential way that to complete this society. Like it is truly like it's an essential ingredient to a stable and prosperous society. Everyone needs to know this history. And so, you know, even as it relates to our community, we're probably going to have to start coming up with alternative ways to ensure that our young people are learning that history. Because a lot of our young people now, especially in Gen Z, they don't know these history lessons the way that a lot of folks that I remember that I was growing up with in my generation and Generation X knew these lessons, and even our parents before us. They're not getting exposed to a lot of that. I was just having a conversation with a Black historian the other day who was saying, yeah, you know what, it's something really different now, and it's troubling. You know, we do have like young Black people in our community, Gen Z, very aware of, you know, the social justice moment that we're in, but they don't have any background or context. They don't know about Reconstruction. Like, what's that? You know, I've run into conversations with young people who are like, Reconstruction? Like, I don't know about that. You know what I mean? They know about slavery, you know, but they don't know about like all the other, they don't know about like, you know, Black history before 1619. You know, it's like they haven't grasped that, and that is by design. And so that's something that we have to fight back against, to provide that full, complete history and that full layer of security for our communities. We have to wrap this Monday edition of Reality Check a little early. We've got a special fireside chat broadcast being brought to you or delivered to you by Thomas Jefferson University and Jefferson Health, to have a fireside chat on the vision, the life, and legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. during this Black History Month. So you will hear that broadcast next here on Reality Check. I'm Charles Ellison. You can reach me at Ellison Report on Twitter.com, #Reality Check, of course, and also the B Note, THEBE Note.com. That's our companion magazine to this program. Check out the latest B Note that's there too from our regular contributor Pete Saunders, who's an urban planner. It's about the life cycles of Black urban neighborhoods. It's a good read. You should check it out. All right, that wraps this Monday edition. In the meantime, everyone, I want you to stay sharp, stay smart, but more importantly, please stay safe out there. Let's go to our special Black History Month Holiday Observance Fireside Chat broadcast being brought to you by Thomas Jefferson University and Jefferson Health. I'll see you tomorrow, God willing, Tuesday, 10 a.m. sharp.